All right, and that's 5:05. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Councilmember Montgomery Steppe, can you please go ahead and give your opening remarks?
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everyone. I'm Councilmember Monica Montgomery Steppe, and I have the honor of representing 18 neighborhoods that make up Council District 4 in the city of San Diego. Our city's public utilities department operates 9 reservoirs, 4 wastewater treatment facilities, 131 stations, and even more than that. Water is a crucial necessity for all, and there is a lot of infrastructure that goes into making sure that water keeps running. I really appreciate you all showing up this evening. We don't talk about water and sewer every single day, but we understand the critical role that water and sewer play in our day-to-day lives. So I would just ask you to please listen intently to today's presentation, write down your questions. You'll have time to ask them and hear responses from city staff. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Sarah, and thank you everyone for showing up this evening.
So just to give a clear idea of how we're going to be presenting tonight, because we're doing a bilingual presentation, I will be doing one slide, and then Doris will do the next slide, which will be en español. So go ahead and translate what I just said.
Very well. Para estar claramente a todos en la misma página, lo que va a suceder esta tarde es que yo hablaré, la señora Tara Bravo, en inglés una de las pistas. Luego pasará la intérprete, que soy yo, Doris Pérez, con mucho gusto, para leer y traducir lo que se haya dicho.
And to ask a question anytime during the presentation, please enter it into the chat window, which is in the bottom right side of your screen, most likely. If you don't see it, press the button in the center of your screen, and then that will show up in the bottom right side, as I said. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and open up the questions to the floor.
Para poder dirigirnos a sus preguntas, por favor, usen el chat. El chateo al fondo de esta pantalla deberá de estar a la mano derecha. Ponga su pregunta allí. Al final de esta presentación habrá una sesión de preguntas y respuestas y nos dirigiremos a esas preguntas en ese momento.
And with that, I'll go ahead and start sharing the screen. So tonight, thank you so much for taking your time this evening. I know you all have a very busy lives, and I appreciate you taking this moment to find out what's happening and really educate yourself on what is going on. So we're going to be talking. Go ahead.
Muchas gracias por unirse esta tarde. Sabemos que ustedes deben de estar muy bien informados de todo lo que tiene que ver con las aguas residuales y las tarifas, y por lo tanto les damos la bienvenida para que se enteren mejor de lo que involucra esto.
With me tonight, I have Shauna Lawrence, Director of Public Utilities, who will be acting as a city expert. I've got Lisa Celaya, the Assistant Director of Public Utilities, who is also a city expert, and Adam Jones, the Deputy Director of Finance, to answer all of your really tricky questions that I may or may not know the answer to. So with that, I'll let Doris let you know who they are en español.
Esta tarde también tenemos a Shauna Lawrence, a Lisa, I am sorry, the last name, I didn't get Lisa. Oh, Celaya. Son expertas en peritos en sus ramas de agua con el Distrito de Agua y Servicios Públicos. Y él también está el señor Adam Jones. Ellos harán los que contestarán sus preguntas al final con más brevedad y con más certeza.
And today we'll be discussing what we do at the Public Utilities District, why we're here tonight, the rate setting process in its entirety, where that money goes once we get the revenues in, why rate adjustments are necessary at this time, what the city is doing to control costs, and then what those proposed rates might look like, and finally, how you can participate in the process.
Esta tarde vamos a dirigirnos en los servicios públicos de agua. ¿Cómo es que se establecen las tarifas? ¿Dónde es que va ese dinero? ¿Por qué es que tenemos los ajustes? ¿Qué es lo que la ciudad estará haciendo en ese respecto? Las propuestas que hay y también cómo es que ustedes se enterarán más.
So let's first talk about what we do. The system that supports the city of San Diego is massive. You have a very large city, so therefore the system that supplies water and wastewater services must be equally as large, right? So if you look at the left, you'll see a picture of just one of the 7 different facilities that provide these services.
La ciudad de San Diego es enorme. Es muy grande y masiva y por lo tanto tenemos aquí a mano izquierda, verán una de 7 de las instalaciones de aguas residuales y entonces aquí también sabrán cómo es que vamos a dirigirnos manteniendo esos alcantarillados y cuántas personas son las que sirven y por eso estamos teniendo esta reunión.
That means that there's about 3,000 miles of water and wastewater mains separately, so a total of more than 6,000 miles of pipeline that are maintained every year, and more than 20 million gallons of recycled water produced each day. And in that, we're serving more than 1.4 million people. So just, it's a very, as you can tell, it's a very large scope of what the Public Utilities Department does to ensure that you have water and wastewater services every single day.
Con esto, ya pueden ver, nosotros mantenemos 3,039 millas de alcantarillado, la cual son más de 6,000 millas de alcantarillado por día. También servimos a 1.4 millones de personas. Pueden ver que esta instalación y este programa y los servicios son enormes para producir todo lo que tiene que ver con los galones de agua reciclada por día.
So why are we here tonight? An independent consultant looked at the revenues and costs of the department and found that if the city does not increase wastewater rates, there will just simply not be enough revenue to provide those services starting in 2022, which is next year. And in addition to that, the imported water that the city purchases to supply residents with water is also increasing, which is a direct cost to them. And so they must pass on that direct cost to customers. And why is that? We'll
Bueno,
get into that.
¿por qué estamos aquí? Un consultor independiente concluyó que si no aumentamos las tarifas de las aguas residuales, no habrá suficientes ingresos para proporcionar los servicios necesarios de aguas residuales y de agua reciclada a partir del próximo año, que es en el 2022. El costo del agua importada está aumentando y nuestro mayorista está transfiriendo ese costo a la ciudad, lo que requiere un ajuste para los clientes, ustedes, los residentes.
As I was saying, it's required that we pass on those costs. And why? Because according to Proposition 218, which was approved by Californians back in 1996, it means that the actual cost of providing water and wastewater must not exceed the price, and also vice versa. So the price cannot exceed the cost, right? So the cost can't exceed the price, which means we have to pay for what it costs, but also the price cannot not exceed the cost. So they're not allowed to charge you more than what it actually costs to provide you that service. In addition, the amount that each customer class must pay has to match or reflect the demand on the system. And that's something that was looked at with the wastewater cost of service study. And finally, to be as transparent as possible, a written notice about these changes has to be sent, is required to be sent out to every owner or customer at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. So that would happen on August 7th.
El ajuste de la tarifa, basado en la proposición 218, aprobada por los votantes de California en el 96, no se puede cobrar más que los costos reales de proporcionar el servicio de agua y de aguas. En otras palabras, el precio no puede exceder el costo. El costo sí puede ser más, pero el precio que se le cobre al cliente, usted es residente, no puede ser más. Ahora, esos ingresos son derivados del cargo y no se utilizarán para ningún otro propósito que no sea aquel para el que se impuso el cargo. La cantidad de la tarifa no puede exceder, como dije, el costo proporcional del servicio de la parcela. No se puede imponer ningún cargo por un servicio a menos que ese servicio se use realmente o esté disponible de inmediato para el propietario de la propiedad. Ahora, la ley también exige que tenemos que ser transparentes. Se enviará un correo, un aviso por escrito del cargo propuesto al propietario del registro de cada parcela al menos de 45 días antes de la audiencia pública.
How did we determine what those costs might look like, and how does the city determine what your rates are? Well, first they start with the total revenue required to run the utility. So every single cost that comes to the utility. Then they look at that, then they break down that cost based on function. So they look at what was required to operate the equipment, what is required to invest in future upgrades, etc. And then they look at the demands on the system. So how much is the business sector using of the wastewater treatment? How much are single family residential units using in the wastewater system? And then they match that demand with the cost. So they put those two things together and see what overlaps. And that's how they determine the cost of service by customer class. So that's where we get that resulting price point.
¿Cómo es la determinación del costo del servicio? Bueno, se determina los ingresos totales necesarios para ejecutar esa utilidad. Luego se calcula las demandas del cliente sobre el sistema, el costo del desglose basado en la función. Haga coincidir las demandas de los clientes con los costos. También habrá el costo del servicio por clase, la cual, como indica la señora Tara Bravo, el costo se va a posicionar para que el costo se vea cómo es que se llega a esa cantidad.
Which leads us to where that money goes, right? So we've collected the money, we've determined the price point. Where does that money go? Well, it goes to pay for things like purchasing water from the San Diego County Water Authority, which is the single largest budget line item for the Public Utilities District or Department. It also covers operations and maintenance. So your day-to-day work on the system, patching, replacing. It also covers capital projects, so the bigger replacement items. So if a pump needs to be replaced, if a sewer main needs to be replaced, it's also the replacement of the sewer mains. It covers the safety of the water treatment and testing, making sure when you call, someone's there. The information technology piece, so ensuring that your information is safe and that the system is safe. Any sort of debt repayment from large investments that have been made prior or need to be made in the future to make sure that rates don't kind of increase dramatically. And then at this point, it's of course covering the cost, part of the cost for the pure water facility as a much needed water supply addition to the City of San Diego's water portfolio.
¿A dónde va el dinero? Los ingresos por tarifas de agua y aguas residuales se destinan en su totalidad a los costos directos que incluyen, en primer lugar, comprar agua de la autoridad San Diego County Water Authority. Ahora, eso es el punto más grande en forma sencilla que hay. Operaciones y mantenimiento, ¿qué es lo que se funciona de día a día? Los proyectos de capital que también incluyen alcantarillados nuevos, si hay así la necesidad, tratamiento y análisis de agua, servicio al cliente, costos administrativos de facturación, tecnologías de la información, pago de la deuda, la construcción de la instalación de Pure Water y el reemplazo, como dije anteriormente, de alcantarillado.
Because there are so many things that the city has to pay for, the city is always looking for ways to save the ratepayer and city residents money anywhere they can. So these are just some of the things that we've done to ensure that we impact your bottom line as minimally as possible. The city sought low interest state and federal funding and also refinanced the loan for the Pure Water project, which means at the bottom line is $293 million saved, so that that doesn't, kind of out of the entire cost of the construction, that is a pretty large chunk. It's not the whole thing, and that's why there's still more to be done. But it also, one of the things they've done is increase the preventative maintenance. So really ramping up the preventative maintenance schedule to ensure that fewer things need to be replaced. As the infrastructure ages, things break. And so what the city's trying to do is say, oh, there's a small leak, let's fix that before it becomes a larger leak or a main break. In addition, the city is replacing and upgrading water and wastewater infrastructure or pipes and pumps, which has reduced those pipeline leaks and breaks.
Medidas de control de costo. ¿Qué es lo que hace? La ciudad está haciendo todo lo posible para poder ahorrar dinero donde quiera que pueda. En primer lugar, aquí buscamos fondos estatales y federales a bajo interés y refinanciamos un préstamo para el proyecto Pure Water. Eso está ahorrando a los contribuyentes una cantidad alrededor de 293 millones. Eso es un canto muy grande de esta presentación y las razones de los controles de costos. En segundo lugar, aumentamos el mantenimiento preventivo para extender la vida útil de los equipos y la infraestructura. Ahora, esto es para que sean las necesidades menos para tener que reemplazarlos y también el reemplazo y las mejoras de la infraestructura, de agua y de aguas residuales han reducido las fugas y roturas de las tuberías. En otras palabras, la ciudad quiere entonces que sepan si hay un goteo en algún lugar pequeño, mejor arreglarlo luego en vez de que sea grande. Y eso incluye también las pipas y las pompas que son necesarias para poder facilitarle el agua al cliente.
So that leads us to this moment. Why should wastewater rates change at this time? Well, we're looking at the aging infrastructure that we just discussed, the need for increased routine repairs and replacement. We're also trying to fund those future projects. So really ensuring that we have water in the future. And quite frankly, when the independent consultant looked at the revenues versus the cost of 2022, there's a $14 million gap. Why is that? Partially because the wastewater cost and rate structure hasn't been looked at since 2007, which means that wastewater rates have not increased in 10 years, regardless of the rising costs of everything that goes into providing those services in a public health focused and environmentally responsible manner. So we've continued to do those things and meet every regulation while all of the costs around it have risen and the infrastructure is aging without raising any rates, which at this point is no longer tenable or cannot be continued.
¿Por qué deberían cambiar las tarifas de las aguas residuales? La infraestructura está envejeciendo. Hay la necesidad de reparaciones y reemplazos de rutina. También para asegurar que tengamos agua en el futuro, estamos también queriendo mirar a financiar esos proyectos futuros por Pure Water. Cuando el consultor independiente miró a todos los costos, él vio que hubieron unos 14 millones de brecha entre los ingresos y los costos anticipados en el 2022. Nosotros queremos tener la actitud responsable para poder enfrentar a estos reglamentos que están envejeciendo. La estructura de tarifas, costos de aguas, todas han sido estudiadas, como dije anteriormente. Las tarifas de aguas residuales no han aumentado en 10 años. Costos en aumento.
What does that look like? So what did the result of that comes to these tables, and these are the proposed rates for wastewater services. And that looks like $15.33 today, going down to $14.14 for your base fee charge, but your price per unit, so the variable charge on your bill would go from $3.59 to $4.78. So that's an increase of a little over $1 per 100 cubic feet, or 748 gallons.
Las tarifas de aguas residuales son las siguientes. Como pueden ver esas tablas, aquí hay un cronograma de aumentos. Esto se refiere a uno de 4 años a partir del 5% en el 2022. Mirando aquí la tabla a mano izquierda, puede ver que en un ejemplo residencial unifamiliar, el cargo actual es de $15.33 y para enero 1 del 2022 baja a $14.14, pero mirando más abajo, la tarifa de capacidad de desarrollo de aguas residuales, se puede ver que por una unidad de vivienda, esto baja ahora una tarifa variable de $3.59, en vez de bajar, perdone, sube a $4.78. Ahora, ¿qué quiere decir eso? Eso es por $1 por cada unidad que se está midiendo, y por ahí es donde viene el aumento.
The change, this also means that if we look at the change from month to month, for an average home, it assumes 700 cubic feet or 7 HCF. It's the first year is a change of about $7 a month, and then every subsequent year it's a much lower increase. So that's more reflective of the rising costs that we discussed versus the first year, which is an increase based on the change in customer class allocation.
Las residencias unifamiliares. Aquí hay un ejemplo de factura mensual que se asume el 7 HCF, quiere decir 700 cúbicos por mes. Y las facturas residenciales también se basan en el uso de agua durante el periodo de monitoreo de invierno, noviembre, abril, y se establecen para el año fiscal siguiente.
The next thing we're going to tackle is water rates. So those were wastewater rates. Why are water rates adjusting or changing right now? The reason for that is cost of imported water from the city or from San Diego County Water Authority is increasing by a little less than 6%. And since that is again, the largest line item for the department. That means it's a direct transfer or what's called a pass-through to customers, which is about 3%.
Ahora, ¿por qué son necesarios los ajustes de la tarifa del agua? Ok, acabamos de hablar del agua, de las aguas residuales. Ahora, el costo del agua importada de San Diego, el condado, ha aumentado el 5.86% o 17.4 millones. El aumento se traspasaría a los clientes hasta un 3.0 de porcentaje. Recuerden, esto tiene que ver, este punto es un elemento de línea que solamente estamos dando un ejemplo, pero es el más grande que hay que hacer y mantener los ojos fijos en esto.
In terms of actual rate changes, it's approximately 20 cents per HCF in tier 1, and then it's approximately 70 cents on your actual base meter charge. So again, that's what that kind of looks like.
Tarifas de transferencia de agua. Ok. El cambio de las tarifas está en el 20 centavos HCF en la primera etapa. Ahora, el cobro de metro actual son de 70 centavos HCF. ¿Qué es una transferencia? Ahí pueden ver que la Autoridad de Agua de San Diego incorpora todos sus costos en sus tarifas de agua que se transfieren a la ciudad cada año y deben recuperarse a través de las tarifas. Ahí pueden ver más o menos un ejemplo.
We understand it's a difficult time right now. It's one of the reasons why we want to make sure that you're aware of the bill assistance program that's available to qualifying low income and fixed income customers. And that's Help to Others San Diego, where you may receive a credit of up to $100 on your water and wastewater utility bill once a year.
Ahora, ¿qué estamos haciendo para ayudar a los clientes? Asistencia con la factura. Esa ayuda que se llama Help to Others San Diego, esa es ayuda para clientes, otros en San Diego, calificados de bajos ingresos y de ingresos fijos. Sabemos que estamos en unos tiempos ahora, estos días son muy difíciles, por eso que queremos estar avisándole. Los clientes residenciales que califiquen pueden recibir un crédito de hasta $100 en su factura de servicios públicos de agua y aguas residuales una vez en un periodo, un plazo de tiempo de 12 meses.
Now remember that the whole reason why we collect these rates is to ensure that you get water and that your public health is protected 24/7. And that means that the city is reporting to more than a dozen different regulatory agencies, maintaining all of those pipes and pumps we talked about, and ensuring that when you turn on the tap, water comes out. When you look down in the drain, the water goes down the drain. Nobody is dealing with that except for the city itself. So, and again, we're protecting the environment and your public health around the clock.
Ahora nos aseguramos de que se entregue agua a la salud pública, esté protegida las 24 horas del día, 7 días a la semana. La ciudad de San Diego tiene que lidiar con unas 12 agencias de reglamentos. Esas pipas y las pompas que mencionamos ahorita, queremos asegurarnos que cuando abran ustedes la pluma o el grifo, que usted tenga el agua. Si mira ahí por donde sale y el drenaje del agua, puede ver que se está bajando con facilidad. Ahora, sobre todo, la ciudad de San Diego quiere estar seguro que estemos protegiéndonos a ustedes, la seguridad, la salud y manteniéndonos dentro de los elementos ambientales, que estén todos seguros también.
Which leads us to how you can participate in this process. So one of the things you can do is attend one of our virtual community meetings. They've been happening actually since July. So July, August, and September, this is the last one. So we're really grateful that you decided to join us this evening. Obviously, we would love for you to review the public hearing notice, which again was mailed to customers on August 7th, and is also located online at www.sandiego.gov/rate-increases, where you can find additional resources in multiple language, including a bill estimator, where you can find out how these rates will impact you specifically based on your usage. And then you can attend the public hearing on September 21st at 2 p.m., which will allow you to make a public comment should you so choose and hear what everyone else is saying. And then finally, we always encourage you to follow our social media for the latest updates on both this initiative and other things that are happening in the city.
¿Cómo puede participar usted? Bueno, hemos tenido las reuniones de la comunidad. Empezaron en julio, puesto que ahora septiembre es el último mes. O julio, agosto y septiembre hemos estado presentando. Muchas gracias por haber estado aquí esta tarde. Queremos que esté muy consciente de revisar el aviso de audiencia pública enviado por correo a los clientes. Fueron mandados el 7 de agosto de este año. Utilice también los recursos del cliente en varios idiomas. Ahí está la liga del cibersitio www.sandiego.gov/rate-increases, son aumentos, tal como está. Asista a la audiencia también pública el 21 de septiembre de este año a las 2 de la tarde. Allí en ese cibersitio, de hecho, está un estimador, un diagrama para que pueda ver cuánto que le afecta a usted en su cuenta y cómo usted va a ser impactado. También en estas audiencias públicas habrá un momento donde puedan escuchar los comentarios públicos, también pueden contribuir. Sigan nuestras redes sociales para conocer las últimas actualizaciones. De este modo también pueden mantenerse al día e informados de lo que está sucediendo.
Now, should you choose to protest this increase, we want to make sure that you understand exactly how, which is to submit the following information in writing to the city clerk at the City Administration Building at 202 C Street, MS2A, San Diego, California 92101. And the information you'll need to include is the rate you are protesting, your name, the parcel number or service address, and your signature. If you want to do it very quickly, there is also a small little form on the bottom of the public notice that the public hearing notice that you received in the mail. You can just fill that out and send that in. But again, it must be in writing and it must be received before the end of the public hearing. There will be, if you need to drop it off, there is a desk out front of the district and you can drop it off there.
¿Cómo puede protestar? Las protestas a las tarifas propuestas deben hacerse por escrito, no de ningún otro modo, ni deben recibirse antes del final de la audiencia pública el martes 21 de septiembre a las 2 de la tarde. Ahora, queremos que lo entiendan exactamente, nuevamente, tiene que ser por escrito, enviándolo por correo ahí dice, la escribana de la ciudad, en el edificio de administración 202 calle C de Cuco, MS 2A, San Diego, California 92101. Para ser contada su protesta, tiene que tener lo siguiente: la tarifa por la cual está protestando, el nombre suyo, el número de la parcela o la dirección de servicio, igualmente su firma. Ahora, si está deprisa y lo quiere hacer más rápido, para que no se le pase, abajo de este aviso que se le mandó por correo de la audiencia, puede ver abajito las últimas 4 o 5 líneas con unas líneas guiones. Pueden completarlo allí, firmarlo nuevamente, todo tiene que ser escrito del 1 al 4 y lo puede depositar hay cajas disponibles en las oficinas y las instalaciones de su distrito.
If you would like to attend the public hearing, it's Tuesday, September 21st at 2 p.m. You can see the information on the left. That information is also included in that public hearing notice that I discussed that you can find either in your mailbox, hopefully you've already found it, or you can find it again online on the website that sandiego.gov/rate-increases.
Si quiere asistir la audiencia pública, será el martes 21 de septiembre a las 2 de la tarde. Para poder unirse a esa reunión por su computadora, tableta o su teléfono inteligente, ¿no? Aquí está el cibersitio ahí en azul, sandiego.zoom.gov.com y las letras que están ahí. Pueden asistir aquí a mano izquierda, mírenlo bien. Ojalá que hayan encontrado su aviso que se le envió por correo y si no, pueden venir a ese cibersitio ahí de San Diego y lo pueden encontrar. Ahí pueden ver cómo pueden estar presentes o por teléfono a ese número que está en el 669 o también el ID del cibersitio. ¿Están?
And with that, we get into questions.
Con esto, ahora pueden presentar sus preguntas.
So for this portion, I'm going to, if you speak Spanish, we'll go ahead and have our Spanish interpreter interpret. But if you ask the question in English, you'll get an answer in English so that we can get through these questions quickly. And if you have a question and you just ask it. So we'll get through the questions on the right, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for kind of an open floor question style.
Brevemente, si hay alguien de habla español que quiere hacer una pregunta, hágalo en español. La intérprete lo traducirá a la pregunta y la respuesta que se le dé. Si no, y está en inglés, solo se va a dirigir todo en inglés. Pregunta y respuesta. Queremos completar todo y abarcar todas las preguntas posibles.
All right, so the first question we have is, will this presentation, and this is actually kind of two people asked this question, will this presentation or these slides be available after this session? In fact, we've already posted, I believe, or we will be shortly posting a version of this conversation online with the presentation that you just watched. So absolutely, it'll be on that same website we've been talking about. I'll go ahead and post it in the chat when we get later on because we've got a few questions. So I want to make sure we get to those, but I will definitely post that website in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and copy paste that. How is this not a regressive tax? How are we ensuring that the most vulnerable low-income members of our community are being protected? And I believe that is for you, Lisa.
Yeah, that is for me. Unfortunately, we can't address our most vulnerable populations. And that is because we are constrained by Proposition 218. And that looks at each customer class and ensures that we are meeting proportionality in regards to their use of the system is how much revenue that we recover for them. It doesn't then further define underneath each of those customer classes, those that may be impacted and cannot afford that. But that is why we also do have our assistance programs to help support those customers.
Are there plans to review rates more frequently than every 10 years going forward so that rate changes will happen more gradually?
Oh, this is my favorite question. It's my most common question.
It's your favorite.
Yes, very big on me is that this should be done every 3 to 5 years. And so, yes, that is the plan, is to come back. We don't want to get ourselves into this situation that because it's been so long, it has such a dramatic impact. We are planning into the future, and so proper planning, and that means setting rates in a proper process. So yes, we will be doing that.
And this question may actually be for Nicole. What's the communication plan for H2O San Diego so that low-income residents know that this is available to them?
That is a great question. So when the program was first launched, we did a rollout on it and we have information available. And that was provided through the noticing that went out. We've been including that as part of every presentation that we do on the rate increases. But I think that's a great reminder for our team to continue to promote that program so that people are aware of it and any other assistance that is available to our customers. So hopefully that helps.
Why are the rate costs? So this is a little bit of a twist on the question we had earlier, but why are the cost rate structure not studied more frequently? I think you can answer that one.
Yeah, so as we said, it had been such a long time since the last one, and part of the reason why it had been so long, but we don't propose doing that going forward, is the fact that when we did the last wastewater rate increase, it was before the Great Recession. And so with that, every dollar went further because the assumptions we had made in regards to our expenses, we had expenses that were less. So we were able to go as long as we could in regards to utilizing the funding that we were receiving. But on the offside, it created this out of balance with our customer characteristics. And so that is why we don't propose doing that. We really want to work on 3 to 5 years.
Have you heard from the city clerk as to the number of protests received so far?
No, and truly, we, no, not until we get to Intel Council are we even going to look at that. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're educating people and communicating with them on the importance of why we are doing this. But that really is up to the public in regards to that is their right that they can exercise. And so I don't really want it to influence any of the staff work right now and keep it separate and make it as a part of the public hearing process.
Lisa, I'm just going to add a couple of other items. So the city clerk very much takes her role and responsibility as an independent third party very serious in this matter. We check in with them to make sure they have the resources that they need in order to ensure that they can account and properly tally the things that are there, but she has been very, very appropriate in keeping that information to herself, and she'll be making the announcement at the public hearing of the total number that she's received.
So there needs to be a little bit more clarification on the 5.86% purchase water increase from San Diego Water Authority or San Diego County Water Authority. How specifically does that show up on bills?
So trying to figure out, are they going to see, just trying to figure out the question to make sure I answer it. So really what will happen is the entire bill will increase. It is a 5.86% impact to the city of San Diego. This is one of all the expenses that we have. So it's not directly a 5.86% impact on our residents. That's what we're estimating it to be at 3%. And so you will see all your fixed costs and your variable costs, so that's the cost per each one unit of usage, will go up by 3%. So if you were looking at two bills, exactly same, January 2021 versus January 2022, for that period, they would go up by 3% if all things were the same for water.
Brian, does that help you out?
Yes, that does. I was a little confused because I thought that in the presentation it was mentioned that the 3% purchase water pass-through would be attached to the meter charge, but I'm not sure if I misheard that or somebody if that was mischaracterized in the presentation, because that's just a direct pass-through, right?
Yeah, it's on all charges.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. What does protesting do, and what's the potential outcome of protesting these rates?
Protesting is you're exercising your right, and as you know, just like voting, what does voting do? It's exercising your right in regards to expressing your feelings about this. I hope also it's associated with that protest is some communication to your city council of what it specifically is. But it's the right, and we want everybody to have that right. So that way they can express it.
Lisa, do you mind if I add just a couple of other items on that one? So the protest that I think you're referring to is the written protest. It's a requirement of Proposition 218. If we receive 50% plus one of the eligible customers and parcels that protest the rate increase, the public hearing, of course, after confirmation from the city clerk of that the number has been reached, the public hearing will end. The city council will not be able to vote on the rate increase, and the department will have to go back to the drawing board and resubmit another item, do another 45-day noticing of any rates that are out there. So it very much is, it's a key part of Proposition 218 of the user's ability to have their voice heard on these rate adjustments, in addition to your normal public comment that you can do on any item that's before city council.
Okay, and then Brian said he had another quick question.
Yeah, hi. My name is Brian Bretto, and I am the External Affairs Director for California American Water. We are an investor-owned utility, and we provide water to the cities of Imperial Beach, Coronado, and a very, very large portion of the city of San Diego, actually District 8, which is Councilmember Vivian Moreno's district. My question to the group is, can you share with me how these rates will impact our water costs? Because as you may know or may not know, we are one of the largest customers to the city of San Diego. We purchase all of our water from the city of San Diego. And so I'm just curious how this is going to impact, because the charts that you showed only showed residential and commercial. It didn't show large customers like California American Water.
Great question, Brian. What I would like actually to do is have a follow-up with Adam on regards to that, because you guys are such so unique. That way you can have that offline conversation and get those specific details that you need in order to prepare.
Great, thank you.
And just one last thing I wanted to note in the chat is I'm going to put in another option for bill assistance, and it's called the Housing Stability Assistance Program. So there's a link there in the chat. So another place to potentially get that billing assistance you might need. You can apply for utilities coverage. So just wanting to highlight that. And are there any additional questions, comments, anything that anyone has before we end?
Miren el chateo, por favor. Hay dos ligas allí. En primer lugar, está el cibersitio donde pueden mirar lo que se presentó esta tarde. En segundo lugar, hay otra opción para la asistencia de sus facturas que potencialmente puedan hacer programas de asistencia. Ahí en el segundo punto de chateo pueden ver la liga y el cibersitio donde pueden orientarse igualmente.
All right. That's it for tonight. But I believe Karen would like to say some closing remarks.
Hi, everyone. This is Karen with Councilmember Montgomery Stepp's office. I am a council representative, and I really do appreciate you all coming out or joining virtually to hear tonight's presentation about proposed rates for water and sewer. And appreciate all your questions. Again, to recap, this is going to be going to council on September 21st. pending any changes. So please make sure to join in on council on that day and provide your comments to the full council and hear what other residents have to say. And make sure to check out the website for any additional information that you may need. So thank you again for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Adiós. Muchas gracias por estar presentes.